In Too Deep, BP and the Drilling Race That Took It Down. Written by Stanley Reed and Alison Fitzgerald. Narrated by Todd Mclaren. For the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. I was not in safety, neither had I rest, neither was I quiet. Yet trouble came. Job, chapter 3, verses 25 and 26. Author's note. Both of us will likely remember 2010 as our BP and Gulf of Mexico year. We spent months reporting on and writing about the aftermath of the April 20 explosion and subsequent oil spill. Alison Fitzgerald tracked down survivors and relatives of the victims and attended many of the hearings trying to understand what caused the fatal accident. She dug through documents, read transcripts, and spent time with lawyers and investigators who were already familiar with BP. Bloomberg dispatched Stanley Reed from London to rural Louisiana to try to make contact with BP's senior executives. He wound up having dinner with CEO Tony Hayward in a restaurant in Houma, where BP was coordinating its cleanup effort. The two of us came to the story from very different perspectives. Reed, a Middle East and oil specialist, had been covering BP and other oil companies for more than a decade, mostly as the London bureau chief of Business Week magazine. Over the years he had spent hours with BP's influential CEO John Browne, traveling with him to Russia and dining at his home. He also knew Browne's successor, Tony Hayward, well, and had even spent time with a man who was to be Hayward's heir, Robert Dudley. He had been out to BP's pride and joy in the Gulf, the Thunder Horse platform, less than a year before. He had spent a day in Houston with BP's Gulf explorers, hearing them explain how they found oil in what they said was the trickiest patch of geology in the world. Fitzgerald, a Washington-based investigative reporter, hadn't had as much contact with the oil industry. She was assigned to the story so that she could bring to bear her sleuthing skills, vast range of Washington contacts, and knowledge of the regulatory and political spheres. We were drawn to the story by shock and sorrow over the violent deaths of the Deepwater Horizon rig workers, as well as dismay over the extraordinary tide of pollution that spewed from the stricken well. We wanted to know why this tragic incident had occurred under the watch of BP, and not another company, such as ExxonMobil. We found that there was, in fact, a reason. The story behind the Macondo blowout is more than a story about technical failures or human error. The root cause, we found, may lie in BP's particular corporate culture, which depends on and even celebrates calculated risk-taking. The company's corporate DNA is different from its competitors, where engineering principles dominate. BP is more of a financial culture. BP is very creative at finding oil and persuading governments to open their doors, but it is sometimes less good at everyday operations. The Deepwater Horizon disaster was not the company's first large-scale industrial accident. 5 years before, 15 workers had died in a massive explosion at a BP refinery called Texas City, just outside of Houston. There were other close calls as well. Today's BP was created by the combination of several major oil companies that were packaged together in a merger spree by Lord Browne. Browne pushed the stodgy BP to be a growth company and became one of the most admired CEOs of his time. He saw that there was big money to be made by putting companies together, wringing out costs, and investing in their best prospects. He took advantage of a rare moment in history when nations long off-limits to Western companies suddenly opened their doors. The question is whether he went too fast and failed to pay close enough attention to integrating the merged companies and ensuring that their operations, pipelines, refineries, and production platforms, were up to standards. Hayward himself said near the end of Browne's tenure that BP needed to slow down. Browne also may not have foreseen all the consequences of his drive to improve financial performance. When put under pressure, people sometimes make poor choices that compromise safety. From the information that has emerged so far,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?